Hey, Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome back to Victoria 3. I'm super excited to bring you guys this game. I am currently playing my favorite nation in Victoria 3. I love playing Persia. Persia is just such a fun nation to play. They don't have many really unique mechanics, but I just think they're in a super interesting position when it comes to the time period. If you don't know much about Victoria 3, it is a game that is set in the 1830s, going all the way up to 1936, so it's a 100-year time span, and it's all about the process of industrialization, political revolution, changing your nation, building a great power, and controlling the population, because every single person in my country is represented by a number. This is the population number right here. We're the 22 most populated country in the world, and our goal is to become a great power in every sense of the world. We want to have African colonies. We want to conquer our neighbors. We want to build a grand army. Our goal, I think, as Persia, is to, for the first 14 years, our goal is to build up a very, very powerful construction economy. So probably the first decade, we're going to be focusing on how do we build a nation that can stand the test of time. How do we build a country up? Well, so when you're playing Persia, there's actually a little bit of RNG associated with your start, because how Russia feels about you and how the Ottoman Empire feels about you is kind of random. However, we rolled really well. Both countries just have poor relations with us, which means we can come down here to the diplomatic lens, go to our diplomatic actions, and immediately improve relations with both of them, and that should prevent them from ever going to war with us, even though one of the very first things that we're going to do this game is to completely disband our army so that we can free up that 4,000 money that's going to military wages, free up the population that is currently working for the army. So if I go here to the development tab, the entire economy of Victoria 3 is driven by these buildings. And these barracks right here, they actually employ people. 3,000 of the people in my country work in this. And these people are getting paid wages from the government and consuming resources. Now, if I destroy this barracks, these populations, they go back. Like, so this one is in Luristan, okay? This little area over here. These people will then go to work on the arable land, and they'll produce like a very small amount of basic resources. So I'll actually increase my GDP slightly, free up my workforce, and lower wages by destroying my barracks. And because my two biggest threats are going to be very easily cowed with just a bit of diplomatic plays, that's actually completely deleting our army is going to massively kickstart our economy. So we just completely deleted our army. We no longer have a military expense, and yet we still have conscription centers, so we can technically recruit an army in an emergency. Now, the other thing that we can do is to come to our market screen. Victoria 3 is all about managing your economy. We're going to go ahead and stop importing cannons. I think I'm okay importing wine and luxury clothes, because these do seem to be good for my economy. And it would be kind of interesting if we could see, like, are there any like really productive trade routes like importing clothes? But the problem is we don't have the bureaucracy necessary to import goods, so we're going to need to maybe lay off on that for a little while. Now, here's what we're going to do. Starting immediately, we're going to lower taxes to nothing and raise government wages to maximum. This will pump a maximum amount of money just through my economy in the early stages of the game, which should bump up how quickly our population grows. That'll be a small boost to our population growth, because the standard of living, taxes are low, people can buy more stuff, people will produce more, but taxes will very quickly start to raise, but we'll hopefully live off the loyalists that we gain by running low taxes. Now, the very first thing that we are going to build is naturally a ton of construction sectors. In particular, we want to focus construction sectors in our four most populated states. That is in Tabriz, Isfahan, Luristan, and Iraq Ajami. You can see here, Tabriz in particular has nearly 400,000 peasants that can be employed as workers, which would be fantastic. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Four construction sectors will get us, if I go here to the construction sector building, it will actually produce plus 2 construction per month that we can then use to build more buildings. So we can use this government spending to increase the amount of buildings that we can build. Now, something else that we can do is we can actually pass some decrees. The road maintenance decree will give us a 10% state construction efficiency, which means if you spend 10 construction, you'll get 11, which means it's more efficient to actually build things. And we'll also get slightly more infrastructure, and just generally, it works out quite well. And I'm going to put 4 road maintenances in my most populated zones, with the idea here being that this is where I'm going to try to industrialize my nation, and the rest of these zones are going to be sort of more rural and agrarian. But this is going to be the powerhouse, because this is where the majority of the population of my country is. In fact, if I go to the map modes here, and I go to, not national GDP, is it? Yeah, you can see here, This is nearly 1 million GDP. This is 300k. This is 300k. This is 400k. Some of these are a little bit higher because they start out with more buildings, but generally these four plus Fars and Khorasan are going to be the most powerful ones, but I want to focus on these four because they have the most population. And it's just a matter of like, sometimes you have to make a sacrifice. Social mobility could be a great thing to pass into Briz, which is our most populated state, purely because it's going to increase education access. A 25% increase in education access should have a significant effect on the literacy of our nation. The higher our literacy, it'll increase the rate at which we get our base technology spread. Now, speaking of technology, we're going to be coming in here, and we're going to be focusing on society techs early. Now, we could focus on production techs, but I do think it's better as Persia to focus on society techs because there's actually quite a few good ones that you would want to get to build up your nation. In particular, I'm a big fan of academia. You don't need it right away to get your universities, but it is a good one to get a hold of because you can lead it to medical degrees. And I think passing charity hospitals early is a really great play because it'll lower the death rate in your nation, which as a result increases the growth rate because less people are dying, which means you have more peasants to work in the factories. Now, those are our opening moves. In terms of political opening moves, there are no laws that we want to pass. We're actually fairly happy with the setup that we have. We may consider going to agrarianism later, just because it's a slightly more efficient contribution pool. I think that would actually be a reasonable move once we have romanticism. So we could go like academia into medical degrees into romanticism, and I think that's actually a pretty good tech path. Academia will give us a small boost to education access across our nation, as well as access to universities, private schools, romanticism, medical degrees, and empiricism. Medical degrees will give us maximum health institution investment. We'll explain that once we get to it. And romanticism will allow us to do the agrarianism economic system, which is what we'll open with, and as well as a little bit of a prestige boost. But mostly we want that agrarianism, and also the ability to pass another decree, the Greener Grass campaign, which would allow us to force, well, not necessarily force, but to increase the migration attraction of Tabriz, which will bring more population to Tabriz, which will mean we can concentrate and benefit from industry scale, because the more industry you build in a single place, the more efficient that industry is. So getting a lot of population in one place is actually a pretty good thing. So after all those opening moves, we are ready to finally unpause the game. And yeah, we're just going to be, I'll give you a shout when something interesting happens. Russia has started a diplomatic play in Central Asia. Looks like they're trying to conquer the Kishizuz, which seems to be some sort of protectorate that they own, or something that's inside their territory. Can't quite tell. Or maybe they're colonizing it. I'm not entirely sure, but they're going to be taking those guys on. We have just completed our very first construction sector, and our very first private construction has been activated. This is the automated construction mechanic, whereby people in my country will pool money together to build new buildings. And they have started to build a dye plantation in Khorasan. Now, every single one of these construction sectors that we build, it's going to use a certain amount of wood and a certain amount of cloth. And the more wood and the more cloth that we use, the more expensive construction becomes for us, which means we're getting construction for less, like we're getting less construction per pound spent, which means we will need to then build lumber mills and cloth farms to bring down the price of these goods. So you need to kind of increase your production of construction and then lower the cost of construction. And that's going to be the game flow that we go through. We're going to be kind of running our country to the limit that we can in terms of construction, which will probably involve going very hard on construction sectors early, like literally, like 2 in each of these states. And the great thing about construction sectors is when they exist in a state, they actually increase the construction efficiency of that state, which means if we concentrate construction where our construction sectors are, we will get a lot of benefits. And that is the plan. That's the plan long term. But it'll take us 83 weeks at the current pace. This will speed up as we get more construction sectors, just to get the first few bits of construction capability. But the other awesome thing is you can actually see that the balance of my nation is starting to go down because we're spending more and more on construction goods. And part of the reason that we're spending more and more on construction goods is because we're buying more and more wood. And as we're buying wood, the price of wood is going up. So what we want to do is to try to get wood to basically almost just about being unaffordable. And then we want to create more wood, make wood even slightly more unaffordable, then make more wood, and just ride as close to that line as humanly possible to where wood is almost a scarce resource. And then we want to max out the amount of wood that we produce to bring the price of construction down. So it's going to be a process. We're going to see our money dip low, but basically the second that I see, and it's actually just about to happen, the second that I see wood go up to plus 75%, which is the maximum price bonus, or price penalty rather, because you're paying more. Now, the great thing about paying more for wood is that the buildings that produce wood in my country are loving this. So if I come over here to my country and I check out these logging camps, look how profitable they are, okay? They just have wages as input and they're making like an insane amount of wood Like, they're making crazy profits, which then the people who own this building, right, because it's owned by shopkeepers, they're then reinvesting back into their own lives, into the country. So it's not like that money disappears. It's just flowing out of my coffers, and I want more money in my coffers. But more importantly, construction will become more efficient, more inefficient if I let the price of wood continue to climb. So I need to sprinkle in just enough logging camps to take the price down slightly. So we're going to go ahead and start building in Tabriz. We're going to max out the logging camps here. Every single logging camp at the baseline level will produce 30 wood. Every single construction industry will use 75 wood. So we need to build about at least one logging camp per construction industry, right? But that's not quite good enough, because what we actually need to just about maintain is 1.5 logging camps per construction sector. So we'll kind of split them up like this, and this will allow us to ride the line as closely as possible to where we can maximize the amount of construction that we get while minimizing the amount that we pay for that construction. And so right now there is actually a shortage of wood in our economy. So we're actually, we're over consuming wood. And if I go to buildings that use wood, like my construction sectors, if I go to Tabriz, for example, you can see here, the shortage is causing a penalty, but the penalty takes a while to scale up. So that's why I like dipping into the penalty, taking a small penalty over a short period of time, then building the building that gets rid of the penalty. And then we dip in and out of that penalty zone so that we're riding just as close as possible. Because right now, producing money isn't important, because remember, we're on lowest taxes and maximum wages. Right now, the thing that we want to produce the most is the actual construction points to build things. And so we just finished a logging camp, which will just about bring us below the shortage level. So we're just below shortages. And that's exactly the line we want to ride every single time. Now, the interesting thing about these buildings is every time we build one of these construction industries, we actually get a whole workforce that literally does not produce goods and only eats goods, and they get a wage, which is going to mean, because they're eating more goods, the price of things like grain is going to increase over time. Very slowly as the price is going to go up, because there's going to be less people producing grain, unlike the subsistent farms, and more people demanding grain because they're working these higher tier jobs. Now, realistically, like if I go in here and I check the population of Tabriz, right, you can see that people are migrating away because the migration attraction is pretty bad due to unemployment. But if I go to, I'm trying to remember what it is I want to go to again. Yeah, if I go down to the population here, and you can see these are the peasants. You can see laborers working in the construction sector. They're about an 11 standard of living. Like if I go check them out, right? These guys, they're impoverished. So they have a slight growth rate boost. They pay quite a bit for their goods. They don't have much population. They don't have much political strength. They're quite good on literacy. So they're impoverished. But if I compare that to the general workforce of this area, right? If I go to the population and I look at let's look at some of these peasants, right? These guys are struggling. They've only got a 9 quality of living, and they expect at least a 5. And then we go to laborers, right? They're really struggling. And then there's some people who are unemployed and actually literally just starving, which means their pop rate is negative. And they're going to be like moving away. So these are definitely problems we need to avoid long term in our country. One thing we could do is pass welfare, but that would just cost me money and only save population. And I've just done the calculus where I don't think that's worth it. Could you tell? Can you tell I shouldn't be in power? Can you tell? Was it that obvious? Brilliant. So we just unlocked academia. We just got 0.5 wealth, education access, wealth-based. So now our population will slowly increase literacy fast. You can see that line here where it's increasing literacy ever so slightly over time, which will increase the amount of tech that we get. That's going to start going up slightly faster. We're now going to begin researching medical degrees so we can get to work on charity hospitals. Actually, charity hospitals isn't that important to get online right now because I actually don't have a surplus of bureaucracy. So I'm going to focus on romanticism. Even though medical degrees is what the passive research is going towards, I don't really care. So we got a new agitator appearing in our country. He wants to enact homesteading. So there's a political movement here to enact homesteading. There's 1 million people supporting this. Let's have a look at see how that would change my country. So right now we have tenant farmers, which significantly increases the power of the landowners. I would love to pass homesteading, but unfortunately the farmers just aren't strong enough for me to pass. I mean, the problem is the landowners would get super mad. It would be really nice to make my tenant farmers stronger though. I'm going to give it a shot and see what happens. Yeah, no, it looks like the landowners got so angry that they jumped out of government. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel passing that law This will radicalize the movement, which I'm fine with. And then we're going to go ahead and bring the landowners back into government to try to stabilize things. And now we have 100% legitimacy. So we're back to where we were. And now the homesteading movement got a little bit more radical, which is fine. They could be a little bit more radical, you know? So again, we've got a very, very slight shortage of wood. It's causing a 5% shortage. That's fine. We're about to build more wood. Let's check the construction queue. Yeah, okay. I'm going to put a logging camp ahead here. And our cash reserves are almost depleted. So I'm going to go to my coin and I'm going to raise taxes slightly up to the midpoint right here. And then I'm going to pass a service tax, and that should bring us back up to neutral money. So the quality of life in my country should start to dip as people are going to be less able to afford things. But the fact that I have a lot of tax means I'll be able to build up my economy way faster because I'll have more money to spend on construction. In fact, we're spending an insane amount of money on construction. With the very first round of our construction done, we've managed to bring our construction capacity up from 5 to 19.7. It should go up another smidge. We really want to get it up quite a bit more. But the important thing is, how much we can increase it is going to be based on how many logging camps that we can get out here. So let's go ahead and build Iraqajemi's logging camps. We're going to max out our tax rate and build construction yards to the hilt again, because we want to be at the hilt when it comes to wood construction, because the thing we care about right now is how much construction can we get. So I'm going to do another round of construction buildings, and I'm going to put them to the top, and I'll just put logging camps up as the wood shortage kicks in. So right here, we've got a shortage of wood, so we're going to kick logging camp up. Looks like the Ottoman Empire is having some sort of revolt with itself. Oh, the Turkish peasant revolt. Oh, Jesus Christ. What is going on there? Oh my God. That looks like Byzantium. Are they about to form Byzantium? It could be. It could be. That's one of the best things about playing Victoria 3 is you're like looking in at your country and you're focused, and then you zoom out and you just see the absolute chaos that has unfolded on the world. It's like that Community episode with the pizza and the fire. I'm going to finish these construction sectors. Now, our cash flow is bad right now. That's okay, because once your cash flow gets bad enough, you start passing more taxes. So we're going to tax opium. We're going to tax luxury clothes. I think we're going to tax porcelain. Anything that's fairly cheap to tax, we can get this tax rate into a better position. And then the other way that we're going to be able to bring down our deficit is by bringing down the expense of wood, right? Because right now, we're spending an insane amount of money on wood. So the more wood that we build, the better. It's semi-inefficient to do things this way. I will admit that. But I do think it is one of the better ways to do things to kickstart your economy, because it gets you a really good GDP growth. It gets you a lot of construction capacity. You can usually handle the debt, although this is a little bit worse interest than I'm used to. So I think I'm actually going to kick down government wages as well. And I'm used to the aristocrats doing slightly better on building things. I think we can handle this, however. If we could just get enough logging camps built to start bringing down this price, you can already see that this should start to decrease and we should start to get a handle on our debt. But we have so much construction capacity now that we're actually able to build multiple logging camps at a time. And in fact, the maximum amount of progress you can get towards a building is 20. And we're only using 17.93 production to get there because we have an 11.4% production boost. And don't forget, we also have 8,000 in unrealized taxes. So we just need to build some government buildings or even just some paper factories. And we can definitely meet that goal. So there are things that we can do to turn around our economy right now. This is what I call like the slingshot method. I'm intentionally tanking my economy just a little bit to try and get a better result somewhere else. And you can see when investment pool transfers activate, we actually are making a surplus, which is just fantastic because all that money is going into the food industries here. We do have negative authority, which is not ideal. Maybe I can drop a law here. I'll drop the liquor consumption tax. You want to keep your authority positive if you can. Respect my authority. Brilliant. We just unlocked romanticism. Let's finish off medical decrees. And then we're going to come back into politics. We're going to go to laws. We are going to go to interventionism. And we're going to switch over to agrarianism. What this gives us over interventionism is we can't subsidize all of our buildings, but we do get more investment from aristocrats and farmers, which technically gives us a greater pool of funding to construct buildings in our economy. I think it's just good. It's pretty good. I don't know how else to describe it. It's basically like interventionism, but we can't subsidize everything. So I'm going to switch to agrarianism. I like agrarianism as a law. It fits my country quite well here. Now, the other thing that I wanted to do was to do a greener grass campaign into Briz, but I need 100 authority, which means I need to drop a tax. I'll drop the tea tax. That seems fine. And then we'll encourage greener grass campaigns over here. And the idea is that hopefully with the high attraction, we'll actually start to get net positive migration into Briz and actually build this up as a powerhouse. The more population you have in a zone, the more infrastructure you get. You get a certain amount of infrastructure from population. So really, really, really fantastic. I think it's up to 2. We want to get to that sweet spot of 2 million population, I think it is, in order to maximize the benefits there. So we're down to a deficit of 12,000, it's up to 7,000 depending on how bad things get. And we can make up the majority of that with unrealized taxes. We also just totally finished medical health. So we will be able to do charity hospitals. So I think it's time that we started building up our bureaucracy. And this will also help us out with our tax. So that'll just help net increase our productivity. Now, there's 2 ways that we can go about this. We could either build paper mills and then upgrade the production of our government institutions, or we could build more government institutions. Government institutions cost 300, right? So let me show the maths on this, right? If I were to switch to filing cabinets, it would cost me, I think it's 10 paper per thingy, and we would get an extra 150 bureaucracy. This thing produces 107 bureaucracy. So we more than double the amount of bureaucracy that we get here by having 4 government administrations and a single paper mill, which just seems absolutely worth it. So I'm going to build a government administration, and then I'm going to pop down a paper mill into Briz. And again, I want to build those buildings into Briz because I want people to centralize into Briz as much as possible. Technologically, we do want colonization. We're not in a rush to get it. I think I would prefer to head towards banking so that we get that 10% minting and also lower our loan interest, because we are in negative. We're in debt right now. So lowering our interest will mean we spend less on interest, and increasing our minting means we'll get more money as we increase our GDP, and our GDP is going to increase very rapidly with a construction-based build like this. So agrarianism has managed to pass from introduction into consideration. We need to get through consideration and then bring it to adoption. So a couple of more dice rolls after a period of time, and we will be able to enact agrarianism. And that'll be a nice boon for our economy, particularly the private investing. And I think the most of the private investing is coming from, subsistence farms, opium plantations, things like that. Eventually this will flip, but most of it's coming from subsistence farms. So we want those aristocrats to be giving more of their money. Now, after the paper mills are done, I think we should totally do a little bit of a stock check of how many government buildings that we have in our country. I'll build another one in Iraq-e-Jemi, and that will be 4, which can be fueled by a single paper mill. So then we'll put down another paper mill into Briz. I would like to build another little bit of government admin, just enough to get a small surplus in bureaucracy. And then I will build 2 more paper mills to fuel that. So we've got 4 paper mills on the way. And I think the paper mills are slightly more important than the government stuff right now. So I'll do a good mix like that. But yeah, can't wait for that first paper mill to come in. The private industry is building textile mills. We really want to get to that sweet spot of 20 government construction. We will need to increase that quite a bit. But yeah, once we have less tax waste, we'll be able to erase our debt. We'll be able to do a lot more. Awesome. Agrarianism has successfully progressed to the adoption phase. So we just need one more success of the dice roll, and we will be able to successfully take agrarianism and improve our economy. The first paper mill has come online just now, right? It just finished, which means we're going to go over here to our buildings. We're going to check our urban buildings. I'm going to come down here to my government administrations, and wherever I have 4 buildings, I'm going to switch them over to filing cabinets. A single paper mill produces 40 paper. These 4 government buildings will use 40 paper, and this will get me a huge boost to my bureaucracy. And I want to get into a nice surplus of bureaucracy, because if you have a surplus of bureaucracy, you get state construction efficiency, and you'll have surplus bureaucracy can allow you to increase your institutional investment in things like education. And we definitely want to increase education, at least just a little bit. The earlier you start investing into education, the better. So we definitely would like to come back over here for empiricism when we get a chance. In fact, I'll probably research empiricism next after we'll go for like banking into empiricism. That'll be kind of the route that we go. There's agrarianism. Awesome. So we should start to see a little bit better, like more consistency when it comes to private investment, which will lead to a massive, and I mean massive, increase in the amount of cash flow available to our country. It's going to be really, really nice. What do you do when your cash flow increases? Well, you start increasing the amount of construction you can do. What do you do when your cash flow then goes negative? Well, and then you make wood cheaper. And so that's the cycle we're going to do. We're going to go for a low-tech increase in our capabilities early. Another paper mill has finished, so we're going to go ahead and turn on another government administration, this one right here. And you can see paper is fairly expensive, but as the production ramps up, it starts to come down in price. So it'll even out in time. And you can see with all that tax now being collected, with our tax efficiency hitting the proper levels, with the construction state efficiency production boost, meaning that we're actually multiplicatively increasing the amount of construction we're doing. It's fantastic. I'm going to just temporarily move my entire government over to filing cabinets. This will possibly cause a shortage of paper. I'm fine with that because we're building more paper. So that'll be dealt with. Now, once we have our bureaucracy nice and high, what's going to be the next step for us? Well, it's probably to pass charity hospitals. Because what this will do is it will significantly reduce mortality across my entire country for a cost of bureaucracy, which will lower my construction efficiency because I'll stop getting the so much state construction efficiency. But that will lead to us getting a really nice long-term population growth boost, which will lead to having more population, having a stronger economy, more soldiers to fight in our wars that we plan to fight in the 1850s. Because we do plan to go to war in the not too distant future, in particular against like Khiva, Bukhara, Kokand, Afghanistan, Kalat, Makan, Oman. We'd like to maybe become like a little Persian empire. We'd love to take on the Ottoman Empire at some point. We definitely want to go in sort of a militaristic direction, conquering our way across the world. And just to do that, we need to build up our economy. We need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. And really the thing that's going to happen is somewhere in the 1950s, we're going to get to being able to sustain a steel producing economy. I think our next step is to actually shoehorn in a little bit more of construction sector. So I'm going to go ahead, construction sector, construction sector, construction sector, construction sector, 4 more construction sectors to see if we can pump up the production just a smidge. That will cost us some money. I'm okay with that. Remember, I'm okay with being in negative money because we got gold reserves right now. The price of wood shot through the roof, but we can deal with that in the not too distant future. We totally also just unlocked a new taxation system. Right now we're doing land-based taxation. We could move to a per capita taxation system, which would significantly increase our tax revenue. So that would be awesome if we could make that happen. Remember, we want as much money in our hands as possible, and then we want to let that flow back into our economy. Because right now we're underutilizing the potential of this nation by having so little construction potential. Now, the next phase of construction is going to be towards tooling workshops. And the reason we're going to go for tooling workshops is because if we go over here to our rural buildings and we check on our logging camps, they actually have a production method that makes use of tools. And so we can actually use wood to produce tools, which can then increase the production of wood, which will bring down the price of construction by making wood cheaper. And then we can do more construction. And we just have wood be cheaper in our country and we have a slightly more advanced economy. So that's going to be like the cycle that we go through. So tooling workshops, I think we want to go to Tabriz. And I think in total, for all of these logging camps, we're going to need a total of 145 tools. So that would be 5 tooling workshops in the city of Tabriz. So we'll just go ahead and get that underway. Each tooling workshop produces a baseline of 30 tools for 30 wood. So it's just a one-to-one exchange. But my favorite thing to see is that GDP number skyrocketing as that quality of life number just starts to dip. Charity hospitals has actually passed into consideration, which is fantastic. So once we get a little bit of healthcare going, we will start to see our population grow a little bit more rapidly. My people are very economically depressed right now, so they're not growing very quickly. Charity hospitals is moving into the adoption phase. We're excited about that. We have a huge surplus of bureaucracy, giving us a state construction efficiency boost, which I'm very happy about. Brilliant. We have enacted charity hospitals. We should start to see mortality go down. We should start to see population go up. More importantly, we can go up here to our institutions, and very soon we should be able to increase this to a minus 10% mortality. So now if I go and check, right, if I go, like, let's go look in on a building here. Like, let's say theoretically, the people working in this construction sector, if I go check out the workforce, right, we've got some laborers here, we've got some clerks. They're all kind of struggling or middling. So let's check out these laborers, right? Their population growth, I believe, is 4.5, right? Because they have standard of living, but they have a mortality of 190, right? And that is being reduced by health system, increased by child labor, increased by due to the fact that they work in construction sectors and the fact that there's dangerous working conditions here, right? So this population is probably a bad example because it won't grow very fast. But like if we look at the bureaucrats, by contrast, they're growing quite quickly because we have a fairly decent standard of living. Right, we've got 18 standard living, and the death rate for these guys is quite low because 6 of them die every week or whatever, and they have a minus 5% mortality rate. So we're going to start to see the population grow quite quickly now. as time goes on. And the more population you have, the faster your population grows. This is kind of the way that people work. Our very first tooling workshop is completed, which means we have no buyers for these tools. So we're going to come down here to our rural things. We're going to go to our logging camps and we'll just start buying some of these tools so that these tooling workshops are able to produce something, and we should see the price of wood dip. Now look at that dip, okay? That dip, imagine how much that's dipping off the cost of my construction. Now it's going to dip back up as the price starts to stabilize, but as more of these tooling workshops finish, it'll start to stabilize where we want it to be. We are unlocking other techs, by the way, but I'm not worrying about those. I just want to focus on how do we build up a real economy for Persia to actually go conquer the world. Well, I don't think we're going to conquer the world, but we're definitely going to conquer our local area. All right, we got a few more tools coming in. Let's go back to the wood. I'm going to put everyone onto sawmills now, because we should have enough wood. And even if we have a little bit of a shortage, that shortage will be dealt with slowly as these tooling workshops get finished. Yeah, shortage is starting to alleviate. The price of wood has managed to jump down to where it's actually at an even rate. And this is where we want to keep the price of wood for as long as possible. And we can even now start to ease up on the taxes on people, which is part of what we want to do to bring up the standard of living to increase the population. So we've managed to kickstart our economy in just 10 years, right? Using this strategy. We're up to, what is this GDP wise? Like let's look at the, there's a ranking list. If I go to the ledger and I go to countries by GDP, okay, here we are as Persia. If I go to two Sicilies, look at their GDP. It's all like, oh, and if I go to Brazil, oh, it's all up and up. And in Egypt, it's like practically flat. But Persia, man, Persia, we are just going up, right? Which means we're managing our economy effectively. Now, Sweden is kind of going up, as is Hyderabad, a few of them. But nobody, I feel, is going up at quite the rate that Persia is because of this early game management. And the economy in Victoria 3 is very snowbally, right? If you can get a good start, you could do a lot of work with a good start. We did just unlock colonization, so we will be able to do a little bit of colonizing in Africa. It's going to require us to maybe conquer a little bit, like if we could conquer Galeti or something like that. We'll figure it out exactly. We will need to start building a military economy, but we're not going to worry about that until the 1950s. First of all, we need to build a tech economy too. And in fact, I think I'm going to get started on the tech economy. So let's do a single paper mill in Tabriz. That will produce 40 paper. With that 40 paper, we're going to fund universities because each university takes 5 paper. So I'm going to do 2 universities in each of the boosted zones that I have. And the idea here is universities actually provide a local bonus, which is plus 10% qualifications, which means your people can work higher quality jobs. So just by spreading those universities out in these zones is actually quite helpful. Plus universities will actually increase the rate at which we get innovation, and that'll be a nice step forward. We're going to get started on building a couple shipyards here. And then we're going to build naval bases to actually use those man of wars. So we built 1 shipyard, which should produce 15 man of wars. So that should be able to fuel a single naval base. I guess if we built 2 shipyards, we could do 3 naval bases. You need 10 naval bases to actually make a single navy. But yeah, you know what? Let's do that. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build a second shipyard over here. So we can start building up a navy, because navies are going to be important when we fight Oman to take back our territory, because Oman owns a little, it's kind of hard to see, but Oman owns this little bit of a chunk of Luristan. So we'd like to take that back, and having a navy just helps with that. So let's go max out navy in here as well. These shipyards should fuel these naval bases pretty easily. And we're going to be able to spend our surplus cash flow on increasing the size of our military, increasing our university, so on and so forth. And there's always like a little bit of money going towards our economy thanks to the civilian construction. Awesome. 10% minting bonus from banking is activated. That will mean that the little bit of cash flow that we get from having a high gross domestic product is going to increase. Remember, we're constantly increasing our GDP, which means we're going to be constantly getting a slightly better passive income from just minting money. I'm going to bump the tax rate back up just a smidge. While we're expanding the government, because we're building things like universities, we're building shipyards, we're building naval bases. Then we're going to get to work on building barracks. We'll want to build like a lot of barracks in Tabriz. We did manage to establish a university by building 2 universities. This will give us a nice boost. We can get university building throughput, or we can get boost towards empiricism. I'll take the empiricism boost because that is the technology we are currently researching. So that'll be a nice boost for us. I'm going to start 2 full armies, or 2 full, like a full battalion or whatever, which is 20 squadrons of infantry in Tabriz. I would also like to do the same in the other ones, but I'm just going to do 1 for now. We did just finish empiricism, which is going to increase our ability to invest into education. It's going to increase our passive education bonus, give us a little bit more diplomatic influence, and also gives us access to a few more laws. Now, here's the thing. Some of these laws we can't actually pass until we get rid of state religion. It's going to be quite hard for us to get rid of state religion for a while. There's very few things that we can do to kind of change up our government right now. We're going to be glad that we have professional army, by the way, so that we can do more barracks related stuff. Now, it could be good for us to go for a National Guard. This would reduce political movement, radicalism. It would basically make our nation more stable. National Guard is quite handy for wars because you can always call up a bunch of like conscripts to defend the country. So I think we will go for a National Guard here. And then on top of National Guard, we're going to try and increase our education institution from just a 10% education access to a 20% education access. And it'll also convert more people to our religion, giving us just a more stable country. I will go for mass communications. I would like to get modern sewage, I think. But that would take 5 years to research because I haven't finished the techs in this zone. I think we're going to want railways pretty soon. So I'll help finish canneries to see if the follow-up tech to canneries is like either of these two. Because we want to get to railways. Railways is an important tech. Railways is another way that you can verticalize your economy into a small 4 states. But yeah, you can see these logging camps that we built are now a huge source of income for the construction industry. So that it's basically you're trying to build the most powerful circle, economic circle possible. Our universities are coming online. Our tech rate is up about 20% based on innovation, which is nice. It should go up quite a bit more as these last few universities finish. The reason that we're building the naval bases first is because they take a really long time to recruit all of their ships. And you want to concentrate them all into one zone because they recruit faster, weirdly enough, if they're all in the same zone. It's just the way that it works. We totally also just unlocked line infantry. We'll worry about military techs in a little while. I think my main goal this episode is to build up an economy, right? Which we've done. We have positive money balance. In fact, we can lower taxes here quite a bit and we can start spending money to improve people's lives a little bit. So you never want to have too much cash. You never want to have too much debt. You kind of want to ride the line of like being slightly in debt or being slightly cash rich. It's a good line to ride, at least in my experience playing Victoria 3. At least this is how I play Victoria 3. I don't know if it's like the most efficient or like effective way to play. It's the way I enjoy. Education investment has increased to level 2. You can see our education line is starting to scoop upwards in a very nice way. We did just finish canneries tech. What was the next tech after that? Oh, that's perfect. Atmospheric engines. It leads to railways. So we'll go ahead and help finish this and hope that it hits mechanical tools next. Atmospheric engines will give us a lot of mining stuff, but we haven't even begun to build mines. I mean, it's possible that like some of my private investment has built mines, but I'm not doing anything mine related. We're staying relatively low tech right now and just trying to build a big wide economy that we can use to bully our neighbors. Beautiful. The very first shipyard just came online. And it's important to note that I'm going to be basically the only person buying these goods from these shipyards. So it's important that I make them cheap to produce and cheap to afford. I can tell my my fishing trawlers to buy clippers, which should, in theory, make these factories slightly more profitable because the clippers will go up in price, which means the demand for clippers will go up. Or rather, the profitability of producing clippers will go up. But right now, we're having trouble employing people because this factory just isn't making enough money because nobody's buying the Man of Wars. That will change once my naval bases start being built. We did pass the National Guard, so we have a much bigger mobilization, which is going to be useful on the defense. And now the naval bases are going to be going. Naval bases go pretty quick because they're only like, 50 progress each. So we'll build through those pretty quick. And we should see these shipyards starting to actually demand goods. So like if I come in here and I look at the shipyard that I've built here, yeah, they're slowly. These buildings take a long time to employ people. That's why you want to build them all in the same place. Like right now, it's able to hire, I think if we look at the training rate, it's able to hire 21 men per week, which is why you want to build them all in the same place. Because it lets you hit the arc faster. I don't know how else to explain that, but basically like if I had these all split up, I just don't know how to explain it. It just makes sense to me that if you build them all in the same place, you will technically reach your recruitment goal slightly faster. And I don't know how to adequately explain it to you. It's because like these five that I would have built in another province would have only just started their recruitment. They'd be starting at 0, whereas these other ones have been recruiting this whole time. It's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. I just know it's true. I just don't know how to explain it to you. Okay, let's come over to budget. We're going to increase taxes a lot to supply our economy because we are building naval bases. These shipyards the shipyards are starting to produce. They're starting to be able to employ people. We've almost got all the naval yards done, which is bringing us up to a very healthy training rate of 80. We will be able to get up to 90, so it won't take that long to train up all these guys. There's the atmospheric engine, which is awesome. We went to intensive agriculture. I don't care about that. Let's go for mechanical tools because I want to get railways, like super fast, because that'll give you an excuse to build a steel economy. Now, we're also going to want to build some arms industries. So each one of these produces 25 small arms if we go to our development map mode and we go to our barracks, we want to go to line infantry. And a single small arms factory should be able to fuel our military. So I'm going to put this arms factory to the top here to get it finished while we start to get those arms manufacturing. And the reason that we want the high-tech soldiers is just because they perform so much better. Like irregular infantry, 10 offense, 15 defense, that's horrendous. Compared to 20 offense, 30 defense, that's amazing. We also want to get them artillery if we can. Cannon artillery are quite good. We'd like to get to mobile artillery. Mobile artillery would be ideal. That's going to require us to go in here and research some stuff here, particularly Napoleonic warfare, which we're actually already researching, which is perfect. So we should be all good. But yeah, similar to how the boats work, the barracks recruit people every day. You can see here it's training 100 people, 120 people per week. So it'll take a while for us to actually build up this military to go fight someone, which is why you want to start building your military in the early 1850s, just so you can be prepared for the inevitable wars that come. Awesome. The first arms industry is completed. We're going to go ahead and start producing cannons as well. This will lower the amount of small arms that we're producing and increase the amount of artillery we're producing. Then we're going to go to our buildings, development. I'm going to tell our infantry to actually use cannons. So this will lower their combat capability even more because we've adjusted their equipment, but they will slowly improve and start to demand these goods, which will cause this factory to want to produce. Now, we don't have any iron, nor do we have any hardwood. I think we can just import the hardwood from Russia and we should be good. But when it comes to the iron, we absolutely need to start building an iron mine. So I'm going to put that to the top of the queue. So that'll be the first thing that gets produced. And that should fuel that arms factory. But yeah, you can see it takes a very, very long time to build up a navy. And the cost of this navy is going to increase over time. But it will lead to us having a decent number of man of wars in our fleet. Eventually, we'll be able to declare more interests around the world and basically say, hey, we care about like things happening outside our borders. And this is kind of like the first steps to becoming a great power, is becoming a regional power. Once all these barracks are finished, we could consider increasing the size of our military. I think it would be good to get another battalion. So I'm going to go ahead and drop an arms industry in here. I'm going to do that 3 more times. And then on the military side of things, I'm going to build 20 barracks in all of my most populated zones, because technically these barracks, they do provide a little bit of urbanization. And the more urbanization that an area has, the more urban centers it has. The more urban centers it has, the more services it can provide, which are a very, very valuable trade good. So it's just like a really, really useful thing. Plus, I think services are just super expensive right now in my country. So we're definitely moving in the direction of militarizing. We are going to need, for each of these arms industries, we're going to need an iron mine. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3 iron mines, but I want them to be built like right after each of these arms industries, like so. And then I'll put these barracks up to the top. So it'll take a little bit of time for these to, to get up and running. There's mass communication, giving us access to nationalism. Let's go check society tax. What are we researching? The stock exchange would be nice for trade routes. We are running low on bureaucracy now, which is lowering our trade efficiency. We're not worried about that, to be honest. We're kind of still focusing on getting mechanical tools and railroads. There's Napoleonic warfare. So we could definitely come in here now and go to our development mode and set this to mobile artillery, which will make artillery quite a bit more expensive, but that just makes the arms factories more profitable. And then we can export arms to people if we want to. So let's have a look at what goods are expensive. Fabric is a little bit expensive. We could stabilize that price. Hardwood is very expensive. I'm going to find one of my small lumber mills, the 4 out of 4 one here. I'm going to switch it to hardwood production, which will tank the price, and that sucks, but it will mean I'll be able to easily sustain these arms industries. And arms industries are very expensive to build. They cost 600 construction, right? So they like building your own self-sustaining economy for military is very expensive, but it means I'll be way stronger than any of my neighbors because they don't have the economic power to really do that. Great Britain just started wrecking relations with us. I'm going to go ahead and improve relations with Great Britain so they don't decide to go after me. I'm just going to improve relations with like anybody who I think might mess with me. Even if that means my influence is quite low, I'm okay with that. Let's have a look and see if there's any profitable import routes. We could import some clothes from Russia. We could definitely import fabric from Oman. We could import grain from Russia too. That'd be helpful. Try to look for anything that has like an actual reasonable amount rather than just like really small amounts. Like in the hundreds would be ideal. So I think we just significantly improved our trade screen here. We're mostly trading with Russia, which is fine. And we should see quite a bit of trade come in from there. Trading is really useful because not only does the act of trading itself produce resources, produce money, but it also increases the availability of resources in your economy, which can improve the standard of living of your population without ever really having to build buildings. Mechanical tools are just finished. We're not going to be going to any lengths to really industrialize right now. Right now, we're just trying to build up our power base. So that's going to be, we're industrializing our military basically right now. Ooh, a trade agreement with Russia would be great. That would actually get rid of tariff and bureaucracy costs between us for trade routes, which means we trade just much more efficiently. Which should lead to greater volumes of trade between us, which I'm super happy with. I actually miscalculated. I need to build 2 more shipyards. But the problem is that there's no infrastructure in Kuzestan anymore. But I'm going to do it anyway. I'll build 1 more. I should have built 4 shipyards, not 2. I miscalculated. I forgot to double the production output of shipyards. But let's check our goods. Is there any goods like that are selling really poorly? Hardwood is like really cheap. Clippers are really cheap. Let's check our buildings if there's maybe like a maybe a building that could use them. We could build some ports, I guess. That would use some. But that would just be government expenditure. I'll move all of my fishing wharves to trawlers, I guess. That'll help. And maybe I could export. Yeah, nobody wants to buy my clippers, sadly. Oh, the problem is we have no convoys. Okay. Well, in that case, a port does make sense. Yeah, I'll build a port in... I'll build a maximum number of ports here in Kuzestan. The reason being, we'll be able to use the ports to actually increase our infrastructure availability. They're not that expensive to build. I mean, they're 300. But that's fine. So I want these ports to be cargo ports. This will give me infrastructure and convoys, which will open up new trade opportunities for me. It will be quite expensive. I think that's a worthwhile expenditure though. So let's use our diplomatic plays. We want to, I think it's called declare interests. Yeah, because we have a navy, we can declare interests. And what we can do is actually strategically use like our surplus of arms here. Or like, let's go to all our goods. Like whatever we have a big surplus of, like I'm trying to find a good example. Like arms, right? We have a decent amount of arms. We could go for an export route and just look and see, like, who's going to have the best export route? It looks like the free American market. Is there already a revolt in North America? Looks like it. The free states of America are fighting the United States of America, or something has gone on here. You know what? I just don't care. I'm going to declare an interest in America. I want to trade with these guys. Similarly, we could trade with the Austro-Hungarian market. It's actually a really good idea to declare interest in Europe, in my opinion, because there's so many like little countries you can trade with depending on where you place your like interest. But it might be better if we can trade with like honestly, China. China's a great trade partner. So we'll declare an interest in China. I'm going to import wood from Russia as well, with the goal being to just bring down the price of wood in my empire, because Russia tends to produce a lot of wood. So right now we have national supremacy. We can actually move down to racial segregation, which I know that doesn't sound like it's a better law for cultural acceptance, but believe me, it is in the context of Victoria 3. So we're going to give it a try. See if we can get a slightly more tolerant Persian Empire. Righty-o. Let's go ahead and start lowering government wages. We're also going to lower the armed forces wages slightly. This is just to balance out our economy a little bit, because we are slowly starting to go into debt, which I don't like. And we're going to stop producing barracks for a while. I'm actually going to start increasing my economy. And the way to increase your economy is to just like go by whatever has like the biggest negative balance and just increase that. It's a great way to increase your market economy. Also, technology is fantastic. So let's have a look at wheat. Let's go to our buildings, rural. All right. So I guess that building a few more wheat farms would help us out here. So how much wheat do we need? Looks like we have a deficit of about 200. So let's get a few wheat farms going here. I don't really want a huge amount. I just want a few. Each wheat farm produces 30. So I'm thinking like if I just go like boop, 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 boop. Just build like up to 4 wheat farms in a whole bunch of these places. And then go to the end of my queue and make sure these wheat farms are at the top of the queue. And what this will do is it'll start to shift me away from being like a subsistence agrarian economy to a more specialized agrarian economy. I'll start to get like better goods available. People will start to like turn that wheat into groceries, and I'll start to get fish and stuff like that. It'll increase the quality of living of my empire. Oh, actually, we did just get intensive agriculture. So part of the way that we could deal with this is to get livestock with intensive grazing. That'll increase the amount of fabric and fertilizer they produce. And then we can turn that into soil-enriched farming, which is fantastic. Each one of these wheat farms will use 5 fertilizer. Each one of these livestock ranches will produce 5 fertilizer. So I have how many wheat farms going? Let me check my buildings. I have 14 wheat plus 14 wheat farms. Wait, that can't be right. It should be, yeah, 28 wheat farms. So I need to go up to 28 livestock farms as well. So I guess let's start it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, there's 5, another 5, there's 5. So there's 20, and then 1, 2, 3. That should bring us up to 28 wheat farms or livestocks. Yeah. And now the amount of livestock ranches and the amount of wheat farms will be equal, and the livestock ranches will fuel the wheat farms, thus generally increasing our GDP. And we should see a significant jump in our GDP over the next little while. Although the thing to do here would be to mix in, just like every few days, is to mix in a wheat farm. Go like livestock, wheat farm, livestock, wheat farm, livestock, wheat farm, livestock, wheat farm, livestock. The idea being that like we build them in roughly equal proportions, we'll see better results. Oh, brilliant. We just unlocked railways. Railways are an extremely advanced piece of infrastructure that are actually going to completely change how we play the game. But it is January 2nd, 1856. It has been 20 years since we started the game, which is about 20% of a playthrough. And we have set ourselves up for an incredible economic journey here. Now, if we go ahead and check the ledger, okay? We are the 19th biggest economy in the world, compared to someone like Bavaria, whose economy is increasing slightly faster than us, compared to Egypt. Now remember, our economy slowed down in this period because we were building a military. So don't also forget that when it comes to militarism, we're actually in a much better position than most of our neighbors because we have a military and we can afford to fuel it, right? Our barracks, they are getting supplies and they're getting supplied cheaply. So we can definitely look to go to more war-based stuff. And I think the next episode is going to be all about conquering like Khiva, Bukhara, Afghanistan, Kalat, Makan, retaking our land in Oman, building up our GDP, lowering our taxes would be amazing if we could get that tax rate to come down a little bit, because right now we're kind of depressing our economy by taxing too hard. Yeah, I think we're in a great position to build up the Persian Empire. It's 1856. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.